spotlight webinar on South Asian Heritage Month. So for those of you who don't know already, we celebrate South Asian Heritage Month here in the UK between the 18th of July and August. And yeah, as part of that, we've invited a couple of guests along today. We'll coordinate this through the Reach Network. I'm your co-host, and you've got Ash here as well. Reach is our race, ethnicity, and cultural heritage network as part of Equal Engineers. And yeah, we're here to promote diversity within engineering and to share knowledge and to bring the network together. So, Ash, do you have anything to add before we hand over to our guests?
Yeah, so just kind of part of our overarching thing, we've got a few events booked in throughout the year. This is one of many of the webinars that we've been doing. So we're hoping to keep this going, and as kind of Tyler said, bring in more people from different race, different heritage backgrounds. So if anyone wants to get involved in future events, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to consider that.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, we'll hand over to our first guest. Madhusha, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tyler, and thanks for Equal Engineers and Reach Network for this opportunity to celebrate South Asian heritage on this lovely day. And I'm Madhusha, go by Madhu, friends call me Madhu, and I'm from south part of the biggest country in South Asia, which is India. And I moved to UK about 8 to 9 years ago to pursue a bachelor's in environmental engineering. So I was 18 years of age, and it was a big leap for me to do that. Obviously had a great deal of support from my friends and family, especially my mom, to make that leap. But along the way, I met great people here in the UK, peers, mentors, and friends who become family. So I would definitely call UK my second home.
Thank you. And we'll go over now to Mahitha.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. And I would like to thank Equal Engineers for giving me this opportunity. And I'm Mahita, and I was born and raised in a lower middle class family in a remote area of India. I lost my father when I was 2 years old, and my mother worked tirelessly to support and raise me. As a single parent, she faced numerous societal challenges but remained unwavering in her commitment to my education and my development. So, during my school years, I was an all rounder and excelling in various fields. I won 3 national medals in archery and earned over 50 certificates in a wide range of competitions. My awareness of global climatic issues and passion for science led me to pursue a bachelor's degree in physics. While completing my undergraduate studies, I interned at IIT Kharagpur, focusing on renewable energy resources. And this experience solidified my resolve to contribute to combating climate change and achieving a net zero emissions. Consequently, I chose to pursue a master's degree in renewable energy engineering at Brunel University, and here I am. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's really good to hear about some of your journey and about how you came into your current role. To be a research assistant and to be working in sustainability and in the wider engineering sector. Madhu, same for yourself. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came into your current role, a bit about your journey?
Yeah, I definitely relate to what Mahitha just said. Some of it, I'm also from a single parent family where my mom, was a great deal of inspiration for me. And I think it was also a similar passion in terms of sustainability. I wanted to do something related to STEM. I was good at STEM when I was younger. And also probably inspired from my mom because she's a doctor, she's a surgeon. And she always told me that, the most important thing that you would do, and probably you spend most of your time on your career. So do something that resonates with who you are, choose a path that would enable you to work towards what you want to see in the world. So that's why I chose sustainability and environmental engineering. So after my bachelor's, I went into a water company worked as environmental projects officer for a year and went back to do my master's again in environmental engineering from Nottingham. And after that, I think the master's was, I think, sort of a life-changing year for me, because until then I was more, it was the technical knowledge that I had, but I think in master's where I was learning more practical applications, I thought, okay, this is where I want to be. And then I went into a global sustainability role in a retail company, and supporting sourcing and supply chain and R&D teams in various things. So selecting raw materials to designing products that are more sustainable for the environment. So that brings me to my current role, which is a similar role in a global team, but in automotive industry. So the industries are quite different, but my role is very similar, is optimizing products and processes, with considering environmental considerations. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that being said, and understanding a bit about each of your backgrounds and what you do and how you came to be where you are, I'd be interested to hear from you on South Asian Heritage Month overall as a celebration. The theme this year is Free to Be Me. Do you have any thoughts on that and about the celebration overall? Yeah, let's get into the conversation about that.
Should I go first? So, Mahita, do you want to?
Yeah, so I mean, as an Indian student from typical family background, of course, not only me, but all my fellow Indian students are not much prone to travel individually and be free to explore new cultures. And this is because of our much focus on traditions, cultures, values, beliefs, ethics, and priorities. So many of my friends say to me that you're lucky to go to London, to such a place where you can individually explore yourself to new cultures. And they say this is free to be me. Of course, in one point, I'm free to be me, but in the real sense of me, free to be me, means a chance to be what I am, prioritizing my priorities and focusing on my interests, career, and all round growth. So, in one word, free to be me is a scope to shape ourselves in all aspects according to our interest and passion. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about, what that means to different people, and to kind of for each of us to take stock of what our life looks like and the freedoms that we have, and how that differs for different people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maddie, what about yourself?
I did think about it a bit, because it, as you said, it can differ from person to person, but also when you're thinking of one perspective in your personal life versus in the whole society, what it means. And for me, it resonated with the freedom to authentically be yourself without fear, especially the fear of judgment or even the fear of losing opportunities because you express who you are and you're culturally different to most people that you see around yourself. So I feel like everyone deserves to, be free and free to be authentically themselves. And in my personal experience, I felt incredibly lucky in my family that even in South Asia, there's lots of restrictions, I feel like, depending on where you're from, but they've allowed me to be who I want to be. And they didn't, restrict me in any way in my upbringing, or even, for example, choosing life partners. And this is a very personal topic, but they are like, usually people stick within their cultures. But I think I was never sort of not supported in that sense. And also I feel lucky to be here in UK, where there's so many diverse cultures that we could learn from. And I feel more exposed to different cultures here in the UK than I would in my hometown, for example. So I feel like, I feel privileged and honored as well. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. It's really nice to hear. It's a really positive experience. And I'd like to say, just to any of our guests, if you'd like to get involved as we are going through, feel free to in the chat to add any questions, or just to add your thoughts. There's a long history of South Asian cultures in the UK, and South Asian Heritage Month, set up, I think, by the South Asian Heritage Trust, and has been running for a few years now. I think this is their 5th year of celebrating this tradition. Is to celebrate that culture and to celebrate what it means, not just to people of South Asian heritage, but here in the UK. And both of you were born in India, but how does that feel coming to the UK and in general society day to day? Do you see kind of similarities? How does it feel to you compared to back home?
I mean, it's really nice to see as many South Asian people as I do see in the society. And just preparing for this, I was looking up, just referring to various resources that I have, and apparently 1 in 14 people in the UK are of South Asian heritage, which is incredible. And I feel like in terms of how many of us are here, there is a gap in representation at all levels. I would definitely say that. I think a lot has improved in the past 10 years or even past 20 years even. But before that, I don't think there was much representation in higher levels of various institutions. And also within the government, I think it's improved obviously with Rishi Sunak and Priti Patel and others. Even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that they do, it's nice to see representation. And I think in media as well, it's not, I mean, we have, great cinema within India and South Asia, but seeing that in global media definitely has a positive impact, I would say, because growing up in India, all the people that I saw were Indian. Like the leaders were Indian, the doctors, all the people that were Indian. So I never felt the need for the representation of the global platform until I moved here to the UK. Yeah, I think we've come a long way, but I feel like we have a long way to go. And what I would like to see more of is, I mean, this is speaking from my personal experience, is at senior levels and exec levels, I don't really see, not just South Asian, but don't really see people of color as much. And I feel like there are very many educated people, very many smart people. I do see that in the US for some reason, especially in the tech industry, but here in engineering and STEM, it's less. So hopefully in my lifetime, I would see more of that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree with Madhusha. I mean, yeah, that's true actually. And yeah, I mean, according to 2021 UK survey, there are around 3% people of Indian ethnicity in UK. And I mean, even in the outgoing parliament, there were 15 Indian origin MPs among the 65 non-whites elected. So making it ethnically the most diverse house in the British political history. So, and I think it is a proud moment of every individual securing in unity in diversity. And I feel like world is moving towards one world, one place for every human being to live safely and happily. I mean, respecting each other, respect of their nationality, and yeah.
Good. There's a couple of things that each of you got into there. There's the kind of general society thing, and I'd be interested to hear from you kind of how you think, like you say, there have been a lot of changes in recent years in representation in different spaces. So in media, in film, in politics. Do you feel that that has had any influence on how others treat you generally, day to day? Maybe people you know or people you don't know, just in general interactions?
100%, 100%. I mean, Bridgerton came out, right? And I told you this, Tyler, you look like one of the lead actors. But so many people were curious because it was such a huge platform and so many people were into it. And it's such a, I mean, I personally love the show, but they were curious about Indian culture. So they were asking me I mean, if you didn't watch the show, it doesn't make sense, but like about the wedding customs, because it was depicted in the show in a very minute way. They didn't make a whole episode out of it, but they were like asking me about the wedding customs, and it was, nice. And I feel like Indian food is celebrated a lot in UK and South Asian food. I think, I don't know, the national dish is chicken tikka masala or something. So in that sense, whenever I want to share food, people are, very happy about that. But I think terms of representation, now we're moving away from the stereotypical representation in all races. I think previously it was very stereotypical in TVs and movies. It was if there was an Indian character or a South Asian character, it was very much stereotyped. But now you're seeing a variety that's reflecting the world that we live in. So it's not necessarily like a nerdy character, but there's many layers to being a South Asian, and that's reflected in the movies. So it's very nice to see that. Yeah, it's an ego boost, I would say.
I mean, yeah, that's true because, before it was they used to have this idea of the Indian food stings and they have this idea in the mind,
Oh,
and yeah, but I feel like it has been changed over the years, and even now, if we can see during the application process, we can see the AI is making it's filtering it, so there is no any partiality among between the race and everything. And also I feel like my people my colleagues at my workplace are really welcoming when I just brought my mom had sent me some sweets and some food from India. So when I took them, I was hesitating a bit at the start, should I give it to them or not? But then I went over to a person who was really close to me, and then he really liked it, and then he stood up and he just distributed it to everyone, saying Mahita bought it from India, and then everyone really liked it, and they were so sweet, and they're oh wow, Maita, could you just bring us more, and like that. So yeah, it is that kind of the way they're welcoming me and they're encouraging me, and that boosted up my thing, I was oh, I can just bring up my culture in this workplace. And I mean, I had few past bitter experiences where I couldn't represent my culture and my identity in the workplace. But yeah, I mean, it depends upon the people's mindset, though. But yeah, I mean, it has been changed over the years, I would say. Yeah, I agree with Madhusha.
That's
Yeah, and it's
sorry, no, that just resonates with the importance of having allies in the workplace, having people who understand inclusive cultures. You're fostering inclusive cultures at workplace. That's so important. So yeah, it's nice to hear that you had a positive experience after a few not so positive ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, on the kind of topic of stereotypes and first impressions, I think some of the change that we potentially seeing is that in different environments, perhaps in the workplace, often, if there isn't a very diverse environment, this is the first time that people, from maybe like a white British background, meeting someone of your kind of ethnic background or your heritage or anything like that. So then they may have these ideas of what you'd be like, what you would be like, that you then have to contest with, or it may be the other side. You then have this kind of burden of being the only person to kind of show representation, and it gives you some sort of responsibility for teaching other people about your culture, and the difference between what is cultural, what is aspects of your identity and heritage, and what is just you and your character and other things. So yeah, it's good to see those changes where it's becoming more mainstream to see people of different backgrounds, and yeah, where it's not just in your day to day that you're experiencing that people haven't come across it before. It's feeds to more positive conversations and slightly more educated conversations as well, because they've seen something to know, to come and have that, to have a talk with you.
I really like Mahita's point there on kind of bringing in the food for people to try and stuff. I think a lot of this kind of stereotypes it breeds a safety net for people. Everyone kind of knows that the kind of fear of the unknown is what puts people off from asking questions and stuff like that. So I feel like when you come from an ethnic minority background, we almost have a responsibility not to educate people, but to kind of give them that chance and that safety net to ask questions and maybe probe a bit into your culture. So when you do have the opportunity to bring in food or even ask questions or answer questions about wedding customs and things like that, it does allow people to get that kind of, oh, she's open to me, for me to ask her a question, and then maybe they want to probe a little bit on your culture. So it's all about just kind of breaking down that, I guess, safety net that they've put up with a stereotype.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thinking then about the workplace, when it comes to work, it might be a current role, it might be previous experiences that you think about. Do you feel that you're, completely able to be yourself? Do you always feel welcome by others? Have you had different experiences? I'll be interested to hear from each of you on that. Have you noticed a change in different environments because of your identity and because of how, you come to the workplace?
I think it's the latter. I think it depends, definitely depends up to an extent on the room. Like, it depends on where you are. Because I can sit here, I was like, oh, London's diverse and people are like, but I don't know if that's the case somewhere else, some other place in the world. Because thinking about it, like there's definitely been rooms where I was the only person of color or like only women. And even though I don't actually go into room thinking that, but looking back, you're like, oh yeah, that was the case most of the time, right? And also, it made me realize. I mean, working in this role, I look after DE&I of a global company with 30,000 people. What I learned, it was an education thing. What I learned was diversity and inclusion means different things in a very global place, like here in the UK, versus, for example, even in India. What does diversity mean in a very monoethnic country, right? And what does inclusion look like? And it made me think that it could be different things to different people in different cultural settings and different geographical settings even, but having that diversity of thought and having that diversity of perspective it definitely helps it definitely helps your work, improve your workplace, and it definitely helps you to align with how the world is going at the moment. So and for me, I mean, bringing it back to the UK, I feel like I didn't initially take initiative to share my culture actively, I would say, mostly because, I wasn't sure how to, within a professional setting, within the boundaries of a professional setting. But through talking about small things, once you're made friends within the workplace and you talk about various festivals or what would you do over the weekend? I was like, oh, I cooked this dish, and they're like, oh, what is this dish? And then it slowly starts, and I think it's a lot to do with the inclusive culture that they foster. And sometimes maybe the senior leadership doesn't exactly know how to make this an, how where do I start? Because in the last 20 years we hired for people of color, so how can I make a difference, right? So I think it will be an educational journey from both sides, from the ethnic minority side and also people who are trying to make it a better place for everyone. But I think one definite positive thing through this journey is I think, help understand or like be better at work, because it helps understand why a person is a certain way if you understand the cultural background. And even if you don't spread to the whole company within your immediate team, if you can share it, it will definitely help you within your career and within your workspace. And it's also perhaps, negates any forms of biases people might have, or like you said, preconceived notions about you or your culture. So yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because what I've learned from my journey is like, it depends upon the mindset of the people that are in the room. Because, like, as I've mentioned before, in my previous workplace in the university, the people are really welcoming, and like, I felt very comfortable with them sharing my culture and like everything, and like, it's like, but whereas if it like comes to my present work, I feel in my present work the people are not much welcoming, and they're like, I feel like it's like there's a lady which who is like a real, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but she's really racist, like, she is from white background, and like, we can just clearly see the differentiation, like, between the colored people and with the white people she's doing. Because I mean, it can be based on anything, like, the rota she gives, like, the work rota. Like, she'll be giving a very good days, like, the days which are not busy to the white people. I mean, the days which are busy, I mean, we can just clearly see the bias between, like, these things. I mean, yeah, I think it depends upon the people's mindset, and, like, as Madhusha mentioned before, like, we still can't see a lot of color people in the like, the higher levels of positions and the engineering and in technical background. I think, yeah, it's concerning for me, yeah.
A real variety there. I think it's a very valid issue to raise that there are still, there are still workplaces or other environments where we are still facing these issues where people will treat you a certain way because of your ethnicity. And it's not right, but it still exists. Racism still exists. And we can talk about it for a long time, but in British culture, kind of racism is kind of
part of the history.
Yeah.
It's very nuanced, compared to like other places we compare us to the Americans, and it's kind of how direct we are and indirect, and it's interesting to think about different ways that people may treat you and have that negative impact on you or make you feel in any way not welcome or not free to be yourself. Interestingly, in the flip side, it's good to think about the positive experiences, the things, the times where we have felt welcomed, and they can just be one individual in a workplace, but that is how I feel we influence, workplace cultures, how we influence wider cultures. We are all only individuals as part of something wider, and being able to have that, maybe one ally in, say a white colleague, and feel supported by them. You get positive responses from them, and then to go beyond that and being able to talk about situations that you face, because there are situations where they may be direct if somebody has been overtly racist to you. How it's a bit black and white. It's easy to navigate, but then there are other situations where you feel like somebody is treating you differently because of your background, but you can't necessarily be certain. And how do you manage that? And it can be very isolating experience if you're the only person there who is experiencing that, or if you don't have other people to share that with. So really interesting to hear from both of you and on your experiences.
I really like the idea of ally, actually. Maybe I'll put it forward for the next D&I meeting, is, as you have a buddy when there's a new starter, maybe have an option to have an ally within the company where people can freely talk about if they're, again, not, it's not everything, it's like a very serious, take a legal action sort of, but I feel like there's a microaggression here. How do I deal with it, sort of thing? So
get that other perspective. And you spoke a bit about leadership as well, and kind of being the responsibility of leaders to bring, to promote that diversity and inclusion, and to bring people through to senior positions. So you have diversity at all levels of the business, not just lower levels, which is typically how we see it now. As you progress to high level in a company, you tend to see less diversity. And something kind of had been said to me, it's a very valid point. And we've spoken a bit about it, but it shouldn't be on the individual to, be the one fighting and trying to promote the diversity and inclusion. It needs to be supported by people who don't identify with that group, who aren't of that background, so other people encouraging that and supporting this work. And that's the way to progress in this diversity and inclusion initiatives in different companies and organizations in society generally. It takes everyone. Inclusion is about everybody. It's not just about different groups of people, as we are in the UK, minorities, trying to fight and be accepted. It's about those people encouraging the acceptance. I suppose now's a good time to ask if we have any additional questions. I'll just check in the chat. Nothing from anybody in the audience at the moment. Is there anything else that either of you would like to speak to today while we're here before we come on to speak a bit more about South Asian Heritage Month and the trust itself?
I was probably thinking, what could I do to make a difference, right? What could I do? And probably, you know, maybe when I was back in India, when I was growing up, I was more of an introvert, probably had 5 friends. Here, here I was actively trying to be more sociable because, you know, my friends are like my family here and stuff. But other than that, to be more, make myself more visible within STEM space, apart from LinkedIn, and again, joining Equal Engineers Network, I think is a step 1, and saying yes to this is step 2. But how do I take it further? You know, maybe within workplace or like through LinkedIn. What could I do to? I just like, you know, explore this idea basically to improve representation. Yeah. Any thoughts?
It'd be good to hear from the audience as well if anybody has any thoughts on, you know, how to do that. How do you as an individual promote diversity and inclusion in professional space? Do you feel like you can do that? And then wider, you know, like we talk about LinkedIn, we talk about online, talk about other spaces. Being here today is a wonderful way. That's, you know, it's what we stand for. It's what our ultimate aim is, and it's great that we can do this. And I suppose flip that around you. That's for yourself. For each of you, my question would be then, what would be one thing potentially that you would like others to take away, people who may be watching this, people who may this video get shared to, that someone can do to be more inclusive, or what's one thing you would like them to know about South Asian heritage, or something? If there's one thing for people to take away, what would that be? We can give you a moment to think about it. We can come back to that if you like. I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes talking about South Asian Heritage Month and the South Asian Heritage Trust, just to direct people who are listening today. If you haven't already, go and check out the website. It's wonderful work that they're doing to set this up and to continue to support it year on year. They keep on growing, and they are bringing communities together across the UK. They're spotlighting, you know, so many in-person events of so many different kinds, you know, in the arts, kind of community levels, to bring people together to really promote those celebrations and that celebration of South Asian heritage and how diverse that looks here in the UK as well. You know, there are, you know, 8 different countries that make up that South Asian region, but beyond that, we then have how in the UK the blend of Britishness and to be South Asian has kind of grown and developed over the past, you know, in recent years. So yeah, absolutely, go and check out the website if you haven't already. There are a load of resources there. There are some online events that you can take part in as well if you can't get involved in the in-person stuff, and so much other content. They have a YouTube channel with a selection of videos and, you know, kind of people in the media taking part in those as well. There's some shorts, some longer ones, direction to movie and film, and all sorts of things that you can get involved with throughout the month. At Reach Network, we'll continue to share things. So through the Reach Network LinkedIn group, through the Equal Engineers LinkedIn page, through the website. Yeah, so, and thank you everyone for joining. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add before we close up today?
I think just a final thought, perhaps, is, you know, for any South Asians on this call, you know, I feel like I was in a place where I didn't actually look for it, but there's so many networks you could join. There's so many communities out there. So I recently joined a Telugu Youth Association. I didn't know anyone who spoke Telugu before. I don't know, before 2 years ago. I've been here for 8 years. So even in South Asia, there's so much diversity. So they, you know, look for it, even if you don't participate in any of the events, but it's just knowing what, you know, there's people that from your background within this country could be a boost. And also, it's always good to have thick skin, because not everyone is on the same level, like on the same level of the journey of understanding different cultures. So in a professional space, have a thick skin, and obviously when you come forward, if you have an ally, you know, speak up when you're in a position to do so, but not at the risk of your career. So that would be my sort of finishing thought, I would say.
Brilliant. Thank you. Mahitha,
Yeah,
do you have
exactly.
anything you'd like to
Yeah,
share?
I mean, that's how I met Tyler, right? Like, you know, at an FB live event, like, you know, it's a association for the Black and minority people. I would say it was such a such a good networking event, like, you know, where I had the opportunity to meet the people from different companies and from different ethnicity and, like, you know, all the minority, like, you know, background people. So I have heard a quite stories how their journey was in, like, you know, UK, from like since they have come to UK, and, like, you know, from to the position they were at the moment, like, you know, how they have struggled, like, you know, being a minority ethnic group in UK. And I think it's quite, like, you know, inspiring to me, like, you know, I mean, to just think, like, you know, it's not only me who is struggling in here. So there are a lot of other people from like, you know, like other ethnic backgrounds who are struggling with coping up with the anything, like, you know, in the workplace or at this university or anything. So I would say, like, you know, as Madhusha said, like, you know, just join like different, like, you know, we do have a Telugu association group in our university. So I think it helps us a lot. Like, you know, if we can share our thing, like, you know, with the same ally, like, you know, then we can just, like, you know, I feel like our burden will be relieved. Like, you know, we'll have a relief. And then, yeah, FB is one of the really good platform for, like, you know, for any job opportunities or for like anything. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really, really good finishing point, and it's all about the people, right, and the kind of humanness that's been able to connect with others. I think it's so powerful, and yeah, that's what both of you have done for us today by, you know, coming along and sharing some of your experience, some of your background and your story. So thank you so much for taking part in this. It's been a wonderful way to start South Asian Heritage Month this year. So yeah, thank you. A great way to celebrate that. And now we'll say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for joining. Yes, keep involved, like I say, on the LinkedIn group, the LinkedIn page, and we'll be sending some follow-ups as well as a recording to the session.
Thank you for the opportunity, and you know, for organising the session, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Equal Engineers, for giving this opportunity. And yeah, thank you. I really had a great day. I mean, great session. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.